Right, I'm going to call this meeting to order tonight. Welcome to our Soquel Elementary School District Board meeting. We're going to start off with Principal Lemos. She will introduce our pledge leader for tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. And a special thank you to Estella Zappacosta, who's tonight's pledge leader. She's a third grade student at Santa Cruz Gardens and absolutely represents what it means to be a dolphin. So, Estella, if you are ready, you can lead us in the pledge.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, I will read to you the district's mission statement. Staff, students, parents, and the community share the responsibilities for each child's success. We are committed to ensuring that each student develops the skill and confidence for lifelong achievement and is prepared to make a positive contribution to our world.
Thank you very much. All right, Estella. I have a pledge leader with a certificate to read to you. Sorry, I don't have a, well, I know you'll get this. I don't think you could see it on my computer here, but you'll eventually get one. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it out loud to everybody. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. Estella Zappacosta. Let me start off. That's one cool name. I really like that name. I'll trade you. Estella Zappacosta has been a leader throughout distance learning in the classroom. She is quick to offer help to her classmates and is always includes others in breakout activities. She is a passionate writer and enjoys teaching others with her writing. A few things that Estella knows a lot about, including camping, hide and seek in the dark, Nerf gun wars, and gymnastics. Now, you do Nerf gun wars and gymnastics at the same time? That sounds like fun.
My neighbors,
okay. We are very proud to have Estella represent Santa Cruz Gardens tonight. Thank you very much. All right, thank you for coming tonight. I know we like to ask questions, especially about what I've read, and it sounds like you like to have a lot of fun. Where do you like to camp?
Usually we'll go up to Shaver.
Okay. And then anywhere else you've camped before?
I go backpacking with my dad and some of my cousins and friends.
Wow. So when you go backpacking, how long do you go for?
The most is like 3 or 4 days.
That's a long time to be out in the wilderness. It sounds like a lot of fun. Any other board members have any questions or comments for Estella? I know we do. Yeah. Go ahead, Phil. Just remember to mute.
Yeah. Right. So you have to carry everything in with you, right? It must be a pretty heavy load when you go in.
Camping? Backpacking? Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I carry my stuff, and it's the most miles is usually 5 miles.
That's a long ways. Carolyn?
I'd like to know a little bit more about your writing, Estella. What are some of your favorite topics to write about?
I wrote a story about camping, and also I really know a lot about slime, so I wrote a story about slime. And my favorite type of writing is
We missed that last part. Your favorite type of writing is
poetry.
poetry.
Okay.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Estella.
All right.
That's amazing. We heard a good poet today at
Mhm.
a really big event that happened, who was also a young poet. Your shirt, does it say love on it? Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I hope to listen to some of your poetry someday, and we're just so happy you shared part of your evening with us.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Well, with that, Estella, we're going to move on to our meeting, but you know what? It was really awesome to meet you tonight. And you know what? Stay awesome too. And we'll look forward to maybe sometime we'll see some of your poetry at least exhibited in the classrooms or at the school. And we will not forget the name Estella Zeppacosta.
Thank you.
All right. You have a really good evening, okay?
Thanks, Estella.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right, next, roll call. Linda, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Rodriguez,
Here.
Trustee Jackson Miller,
Here.
Trustee Izant Gonzalez,
Here.
Trustee Friedman,
Present.
Trustee Donnelly.
Present.
Thank you.
Next item, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as it stands?
Sure, I'll
make-
make motion. Nope.
Oh,
I'll be
triple.
second.
Amanda first, Carolyn second, okay.
Is
All
that
in
okay,
favor?
Phil?
What's that?
I said, is that okay,
Aye.
Phil? Yeah, okay, aye.
Like Hollywood Squares, you got to get in there quick. All in favor? Aye. Okay, any opposed? None. All right, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as it stands?
I make a motion, but I have a question.
Okay.
So does the SARC a factor on the dashboard?
No,
That would-
in and of itself, the SARC is not a factor in the dashboard. There is data from the dashboard that would regularly be included in the SARC, but of course, much of that data is not was not available because of what happened last year. But no, the SARC is not a factor on the dashboard.
I move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Phil, Amanda, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Do we have any public communications out there?
Nothing from text.
Nothing on email.
Okay,
Nothing on Zoom.
very good. All right, with that, let's go to standing reports and we'll start off with Michelle.
Good evening, everybody. Happy January. I've got a couple different things up for you guys, just kind of tying up some stuff and then just a few items of introduction that I'll be bringing you in later board meetings, some updated presentations. So I had the opportunity to meet with a company called Climatech. They are a company that works with districts specifically on energy efficiency projects, HVAC and charging stations, and they are able to go out and find grants. They do the paperwork and the legwork to make sure that everything is filed correctly and that we get everything that we're entitled to. One of the big assembly bills that's out there right now is AB 841, and that's specific to HVAC upgrades for schools. So there is a fair amount of money out there that the district could be entitled to. There are certain steps that we need to move forward with. So this company sounds like they are a good fit for us. They've been working with Santa Cruz City Schools now for, I believe, about 7 years. So they are well established. Scott and I and Steve will be meeting with them later this week again to do a follow-up meeting. We have a contract with Davis Demographics. Some of our board members would remember them. They in the past have done our demographic studies. I believe in total they've done 6 for us over the past 25 years. So we're contracted with them right now to do a new demographic study. And foolishly, I believed this would be an easy process because they were doing it for us. And I found out they require 15 pages of documentation that we have to provide to them. So Pam and I are working with them right now to get them everything that they need to get that study started. Scott had shared with the board some pictures from the Heart of SoCal project that's being completed. And I hope the board enjoyed the beautiful pictures of that new fence and the new trail and walkway going behind there. So they're completing up that project. And then we are going to start the restoration of the track, as you would call it, at SoCal with granite, seeing as that project kind of shifted things around on their field. So they're going to help us put that back together again. Hopefully in the next board meeting, I can bring a proposal to the board from a company that George and I have been working with, CSC. We had actually started working with them in February of last year, and COVID hit and we stopped basically moving forward. They are a company that does surveillance cameras. And so we had asked them to come out and do a logistical study of New Brighton for us and what that would look like in their recommendations. They also do vape detectors as part of their installation. And that was something else that the district had been interested in. So they have given us a proposal, and I'll probably be bringing that to the board on the 3rd for you guys to take a look at. We're finishing up our audit. Due to COVID, our audit was pushed back from January 31st to March 31st. Yes, Bill, we were quite thankful. It has been a challenge to do an audit long distance when you're trying to get information. We're trying to get information to our auditors and you're going back and forth. I miss the days of doing it in person, and I thought I would never say that about an auditor. So hopefully we'll have that done and I'll be able to get the audit report to the board in March. And one final thing is just a quick blurb on the budget. There's been a lot of information coming out both on the state and federal level on how that's going to impact schools and what that'll look like. Some good news, some not so good news, some odd news, a little bit of everything rolled into one with the budget. So on our February 3rd meeting, I'll give an in-depth presentation to the board on all aspects of how that's going to impact the district. And that's my report out.
All right, thank you. Jessica. There you are.
Thank you. Well, it seems like it's been such a long time since we kind of met formally for a full meeting, but we've had a lot going on in the ed services world. I'd like to start with our professional development day that was on January 4th. That day was done in concert with our partners at the County Office of Education and the Ed Services Department. They were amazing. They provided our staff opportunities for choice sessions and also launched a kickoff for their distance learning and hybrid academy with our teachers that were held on the afternoons between the 5th and the 15th. And all of the staff at the County Office of Education that were involved were just stellar. A number of our staff participated, and the final day, the 15th, we actually had the opportunity to all meet together to talk about the work that had happened over those 2 weeks. So it's a really, really wonderful experience. We have a follow-up meeting on Friday just to talk about the things that worked well and the things that we can do differently in the future as we continue the partnership. We've met with our calendar committee, and excitingly, we have done some extraordinary collaborative work to put together a calendar that we think will fit the needs of our families and our students. It's going to the staff right now for review, and we are hopeful that it will culminate in not just a 1-year calendar, but a 2-year calendar. So that would be great so that we don't have to come back again. So that's, it's a great team. They're great to work with. We've also been working with a team at New Brighton to build individualized learning plans for our English learners. And we have written a brand new document that's never existed. It's a strengths-based model individualized learning plan, not a deficit-based model. So we're super stoked that we're getting that going. We have another meeting tomorrow. And that's working really well in tandem with our district's first ever English learner master plan. So that you should see in the coming months. We're really excited about that work. We're also just really happy that our elementary and middle school teams are working on their hybrid schedules so well. We feel like we're in a really good place with those. They've done amazing work. So really hopeful that you're going to see those soon. We're also looking at data really deeply with our site administrators, the data that we have access to and the data that we don't yet have, the data that we might need. And so we're using a root cause analysis protocol with our site leaders to really talk about what is the data actually telling us and how do we know. So that's been exciting. We think that's going to work really well in tandem with the new LCAP template that has just been unveiled. It's super exciting to be thinking about writing a new 3-year plan. And also very excitingly, Principal Lemos and I are convening our first Santa Cruz Gardens Formation Committee around the school's future science integration focus. So really excited about that work. Lots of good things going on in the ed services world, but those are just some of the peak few.
Thank you. Scott.
First, I'd like to thank all the members of our dual language immersion leadership team, including Trustee Friedman, who sits on the team, for their work so far in learning more about dual language immersion programs, and also expending a lot of mental energy on how a program can fit into our district on a practical level. We're making progress on building a sustainable program with a targeted start date of August 2022, the beginning of the 22-23 school year. Sounds like a long ways away, but it'll be here faster than we can blink. Separate subject, the high winds yesterday certainly were a bit of a challenge to overcome. As usual, our teachers, support staff, principals, all coordinated to support each other and to support those that lost power and couldn't distance teach and maybe had a closed road and couldn't get in to work to teach from their classroom. But everybody pitched in and made sure classes were covered. And as an organization, we've just gotten very good at rolling with the punches, but I never want to take that for granted. And I want to say how much I appreciate everybody consistently and constantly rising up to the challenges we're presented with. Finally, January is School Board Recognition Month. Never has there been more of a time in public education where positive and cohesive governance was more important than now. And I would just like to say to our trustees that you are a board that always places the best interests of our students and staff ahead of everything else. And I'm honored to serve as your superintendent, and happy School Board Recognition Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And that's okay. So now we have, okay, California, CSEA. And we have Corey. She's out in Martha's Vineyard right now, I see.
I am. I'm sitting on my front porch having some tea. I hope everyone's doing well. It's been a crazy last couple of months, couple of weeks in my world, but couple things. Obviously, happy school board. You know, I appreciate you all, and so thank you for all the work that you do for all of us, not only as parents but as staff and those wonderful kiddos. Excited to hear about the fencing and the cameras going in New Brighton. That'll be great. That'll be great. You know, I'm part of the reopening committee at New Brighton. I just wanted to give a little shout out that we, you know, as a team, I think we're really doing a great job. And I always feel like I walk away every week with just so many like, okay, we got this done and we're going to move on to this. And everyone's just doing such a great job. So I appreciate everyone on that team. Just wanted to mention that. The calendar survey is going out to classified staff tonight. So they will have a link to give their input on a couple of things, and then we'll gather that back when we meet again on the 28th. And then just the last little shout out is our registration is opening on February 1st. So I'm just wrapping up getting the online registration part set up for that to happen. So that's all I have.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us too. Good to see you.
You too.
Do we have anybody from SEA here? And we
I
don't
believe
have,
Emily Maddox is here.
pardon me?
I believe Emily Maddox is here for SEA.
Okay, all right, I didn't see the name there. Okay, go ahead.
I think we lost Emily.
Oh, she was
Oh, I
here.
was gonna
She's not on.
Oh.
She was
Yeah, I
earlier.
was gonna say, wow, okay, I'm missing a square here. So is she kind of come back in or?
I don't know. I had assumed she was here for that.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move on to the trustees, and if she pops in, then we'll just, then she could, take it up right there. So
Ted, can I
we're
just say something really quick? Ted, sorry. It might have been Gordon tonight, and he doesn't have power at his house. So that could be what happened. He doesn't have power, and so I bet you that's why he's not here.
Oh, okay. All right, very
Thank you,
good. Okay, well, I should say that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. So we're gonna move on to trustees. And I'm gonna head it up because I'm gonna mirror what Scott said is that this month was National School Board Appreciation Month, which was a surprise to me. We had some wonderful emails from staff to all board members, and I was surprised, and I love the emails. Honestly, our district is very fortunate to have such an outstanding crew on board. Everybody has a uniqueness that they bring to the table. And I mean, there is quite a bit of wealth of knowledge that our board has. And, I've been on the board for a few years, and Phil has too. And as you go to conferences and you talk to other boards or members of board or families, I mean, there's some really crazy boards out there in the world. And we have a great board, I should say. And I feel fortunate to be on the board. And all of you actually make me look good. And then a total apology is that I volunteered to reply to the emails. And I mean, I could pull Uncle Leo and say I'm old, I forgot this and that. I did turn 60 on Friday, and I've been having a lot of fun. I flaked out on it, and I will reply, but I just want it to be public that it is greatly appreciated, the emails that we received. And with that, I'll turn it on to our next person down the line. So you guys jump in. Or else I'll call a square.
I'll jump in. I also just discovered the reaction button. So Ted, here we go. Happy birthday. Do you see it? And absolutely echoing your comments of gratitude for everyone who acknowledged School Board Recognition Month. That was really cool to get the messages from staff, and we do have a great team, and it is nice to get those words of gratitude. But really, honestly, we all know who does the heavy lifting in this district. So hats off yet again to our hardworking teachers and staff and administrators. It's a real honor for all of us to serve. And, I think we've all seen what it can look like when people take leadership positions in government who maybe, don't acknowledge decorum and rules and process and peaceful transition of one person to the next in the seat of the job. And that's certainly not an issue with this board. We've seen trustees move along and new ones come on, and old friends rejoin us. And it's always just a great unity of purpose and excellent communication. And I really appreciate all of you as well. As far as meetings attended, let's see, we were all together a few weeks ago for our board workshop on the racial justice work. Ted and I were both at the SCSBA meeting, Santa Cruz County School Boards Association meeting last week. Thank you for joining us, Ted. It's an interesting group, fun group. Let's see, we had elections. So we elected Roger Snyder from Scotts Valley as our new president, and pretty sure not Kim DeSerpet. Oh gosh. Now I'm blanking on vice president, but I can send that all out to you if you don't get Rose's minutes. And we had a good talk about the role of that association and various updates with different districts. I got to attend the our greater racial justice task force meeting last week as well, along with Carolyn and another great collaboration, another great meeting. Happy to attend that. And then also just wanted to acknowledge that we all celebrated Martin Luther King Day this week. And then of course, today's inauguration, and really excited that we have a Secretary of Education who is a former public school teacher and someone who is involved in public education for a long time. So I think that's exciting. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Next square. Okay, let's do the square. We'll let you.
I will go. Just wanted to echo Amanda and Ted's words about the wonderful emails that we got for School Board Appreciation Month. It was a very nice surprise and just very touching. So thank you for everyone who took the time to send those to us. And it's just been great working with a fantastic team. So thank you, everyone. And thank you to everyone else who makes it possible. Let's see, since last time I attended the Racial Justice Task Force and also the board meeting that we had on that topic. Also attended 2 meetings of the Dual Language Immersion Leadership Team. A lot of great conversation, really interesting meetings. I really enjoy them. And yesterday, I attended the Education Town Hall on racial justice and equity put on by the County Office of Education with some really great speakers. So that was also a great program to attend, and perhaps we can talk about it during the racial justice conversation that we have later on. That's it from me.
Thank you. Jen?
Hi, I'll be brief. I think last night's event was wonderful and great to bring I had people in my breakout session from Merced, so it was just really amazing to have such a large network. And I'm excited to hear about how the last task force meeting went, so that'll be great. And I just want to echo what everyone said, and don't want to sound like a broken record, but Ted, don't feel bad. Gratitude in whatever form happens and however long it takes is always appreciated. And I think we all felt the same way, where the emails we got just came at the right time. I'm actually glad none of us knew that this month was a thing, because when the emails came in, it was so appreciated, like there was just this like, oh wow, that's great, thank you so much. So just want to echo that, grateful to be a part of it. Really excited to hear all that's going on from everyone who gave updates today. There's just so much happening and so much energy, even though everyone's been kind of worn out. It's just really awesome. So yay, so go.
Oh, there we go. Phil.
So I attended a meeting with the Central Coast Climate Change Collaborative last week. How coincidental. And we talked about climate change event resilience. One of the things I found out is in our area that this covers has no K-12 or K-14 for that matter members. UC is a member, and Cal Poly is a member. And Michelle, you'll be interesting to note that it's the facility department that's the member. And so we talked about what I want, and that is to be able to have backup power and water at all of our sites, and that we did have a major event recently with the fires, and now, of course, with the power outages. So the whole idea of resilience for climate change is a hot topic. And one of the things we discussed was the money coming from the state, the $2 billion, some of it for modernization of HVAC. So there you go, Michelle. You know, it's a circle. So there's money coming for that. We need to be in line for that. Michelle, I want to give you recognition for putting cash flow on the board behind you. Got it. Let's see. Can I get permission to share that in-person video with the CSBA delegate people in our area, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as the recognition for being a board member, a little bit of recognition goes a long way. I feel strongly that our relationships are based on respect and trust. And so I trust that everybody's going to do the best that they can do. And when that happens, essentially what you do is you say, okay, this is what I'd like to happen. And then you just get out of the way. I'm done.
All right, thank you, Phil. All right, with that, we're going to move on to our presentations. We got a presentation from Principal Platt regarding Main Street Elementary School. I'm sure Scott's going to introduce you, but what's the story behind your profile photo there? Look like you just made a feat there. You're at the top of a mountain somewhere.
Yeah, that is this. I summited. There was like 5 peaks in Squaw Valley that I used to run around constantly in the summers. And that one I believe is it K22 or something like that? I think it's called there. It's like the gondola one and it's got a little iron kind of bald eagle on the top of it. So I climbed up to this little weird peak and then took a picture, took a selfie.
You're like, yeah. That's a great picture. Okay, Scott, you want to introduce Principal Platt?
I would be proud. Absolutely, I would be proud to introduce Principal Platt. Believe it or not, a grizzled veteran now in his 3rd year at Main Street. Time flies when you're having fun, and has certainly been great to have his leadership at the school, especially during these unusual and atypical times. So I will turn it over to him to lead the presentation on current happenings at the school. And I believe he is going to share the presentation as well, or perhaps George is going to do that.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, either way I can share. I don't see a share button actually on my, oh yeah, I do. Looks like I can share.
You're allowed.
Okay, great. Thanks, George. I also want to give the shout out to the board as well, because you don't see this. You don't. I see friends is what I see, and I see respect. And then, when needed, a challenge for the good of all, but with respect. So, I don't think I've seen a board work like this ever. So I appreciate you for what you do for us, for what you do for the community, and how you collaborate so well with the district. So thank you. And with that, I will start sharing my screen. Do I have it up? I think I do. Yes. All right. Is that on? All right, cool. Thanks. Okay, and I will minimize myself. I don't need to look at myself. Okay, welcome. Main Street Elementary School's presentation for today, January 20th in the 2021, which we are all waiting to get to. And so far, it has been a good day today, I'll say that. I first want to speak, this came up when I was making this presentation. My first year as you guys know, was construction, and construction at the schools was in itself challenging. But we got through it. And, I did a speech at the 5th grade promotion that talked about perseverance and how the 5th graders persevered, and they will continue to persevere in their last year there under construction, with loss of a lot of our, play area and, being in portables out in the back off the field and stuff. So, perseverance was kind of a theme. Then we move into the next year. And we have the power outages, PG&E power outages. Then we move into a pandemic. That's year 2. So we persevered through that, and we go into distance learning. Now we're in my year 3, I'm saying, and perseverance could never be more prominent for us as educators or people in general, to persevere and come out this better, reflected on what's happening, and moving forward with what we've learned. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Like, the last 3 years have definitely been a roller coaster, but they have been a really good 3 years. And it is because of the support that this admin team actually has really come together to really figure out how we best support our community. So I want to thank everyone for that as well. Tonight we'll be looking at learning. Mostly distance learning, is all distance learning, actually, I will say, since last year when I did this, and the development of our small student stable cohorts. We'll look at social emotional learning and how it is continuing to support our students and our teachers and our staff in general. And then, of course, which I think is a big part of every school, culture and community. And what that looks like right now as we are virtual, distant, separated, but still continuing to build culture and community when we can. Learning in a pandemic. Well, that's what we do. And it got thrust upon us. And without question, with 1 week, teachers transitioned to understanding terms as synchronous, asynchronous. What does that mean? When do we do it? How do we do it? What are the platforms we're going to use? And that quickly came together, kind of without question, kind of without complaint. And we moved forward, and we learned a lot in the spring. And as we approached what we thought was going to be a hybrid in the fall, we then quickly got our distance learning back on, and we solidified those programs thanks to Jessica Kiernan helping us figure out which online programs we're going to need to use that are going to help support our students, that are going to help gather the data that we can use going forward for engagement and attendance. And all this while at the same time, Senate Bill 98 comes out and says, these are certain parameters that you have to adhere to as well. And we did all this, and I think we did it well. And I'm very, very proud of all the teachers who continue to do this on a daily basis. We have, kindergartners who are engaged, who are learning, all the way up to 5th graders who are thriving. Some of them doing better in a distance learning model than they were in in-person brick and mortar school. We started to develop the small stable cohorts in October, first with our general ed students who we focused on ELL students or students who didn't have the same type of access that other students might have at home, support, internet, devices, food. And so we quickly identified those through some of the engagement data, some of our cost referrals, and then a few weeks later, we came up and started to develop the SDC cohorts, which are now on campus as well. So at Main Street, we have 4 cohorts going. We have SDC students there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have Gen Ed students there with a mix of our staff who are also Gen Ed students for the most part in our district on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday every week. And we're hoping to transition the in-person cohorts for those students that need it when we do go back into hybrid, for those days that they're not able to be at school, so that we can continue to support either those ELLs and those students without access. We continue with our ELD and intervention support. And I just got to give a big shout out to Beth Willen, who's our ELD intervention support person. And Barbara Hubner, who is just been phenomenal. I mean, if you give her a task, she doesn't just do it. She does it with passion and she does it well. And everyone around her learns from it. So I just, I can't thank her enough every time that, we work together and we meet almost weekly, about every other week or weekly, and she's kind of helped to grow ELD, which for me is new learning in a sense, because I didn't feel well versed in the roadmap. And then thanks to Jessica and some of the the L-Rise workshops that we're starting to go through as well, I can see ELD at Main Street starting to blossom and flourish. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on some other slides. Our cost team, our coordination of services team, continues to meet every other week. Cost, when we first developed it, it was to look at those students that might need, support in the classroom. What kind of supports are they going to need? Cost is made up of our counseling team, of our school psychologist, myself, our attendance specialist, and our intervention specialist. And we just talk about the students. More so recently, we're starting to look at engagement and attendance. That has kind of been more predominant because those students that were okay in a brick and mortar setting are not as okay in a distance learning center setting sometimes. So the cost has shifted a little bit, but at the same time, we're doing the same thing when we're talking about supporting students. Our student enrichment is continuing. And this is something that's come about more and more and is gaining more speed. So fifth grade is looking at Invention Convention. Invention Convention is looking at a virtual or online platform. So we'll continue to support that. We have dance, and we have capoeira in third grade, it's a virtual dance that they were doing in person. It's the same instructor. He's just doing it now from a virtual Zoom platform. And we have music. Last week we started ukulele. So we did lose our music teacher this year, which was heartfelt. But we'll work to get that back with our home and school club. But we do have ukulele happening with some of the donations that did come from our home and school club. Some of them left over and some new. So we have ukulele that just started. We're going to start looking at ukulele rotations for 4th and 5th grade. And I would like to see music grow a little more in the years and maybe see some kind of enrichment with music where we have different rotations through the grade levels and teaching that theory and teaching different instruments all the way up through. And our library is open. I mean, you couldn't ask for more to have access to books. You need books to grow. And our librarian, Sarah Thompson, was just, she's at the core of everything. She wants to be involved in all the librarians. When New Brighton does something, all the librarians go over there to help out, free book day. She was constantly hounding me about, let's get this library open. And I'm just, looking at safety and protocols. And sure enough, we got it open. And now the library is open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 9 to 2. It also coincides with our pickup, materials pickup. So, families can come by, do their materials pickup, and then go by the library and pick up some books. So I'm really proud that we're trying to give more of a rounded virtual experience. Social and emotional learning. We just kind of adapted, really. It's a multi-leveled school-wide system of support still. Every classroom is still building charters and still using the ruler tools, most of all the mood meter. And this has become a big part of our staff meetings as well, just kind of gauging where you are. And it's a nice way to just kind of touch base and say, how you feeling today? And you can put yourself on the mood meter and it just feels better just to kind of place yourself and own that and reflect and understand that it's okay to have any of the emotions you're having. Just recently, Student Services started a district-wide universal emotional screener. So that's going to start taking hold and we'll be able to identify more students that might need some more support. The counseling department started with Nearpod presentations in every one of our classrooms, and that's ongoing. And I'm hearing really good things from that. And we're getting, people are reaching out because of it as well. Parents, grandparents saying, how do I learn more? How do I support my student through this time? And then our outreach to parents, which is, mostly virtual when we can, but it's also, when we need to, we drive to the house and we knock on that door and we make sure things are okay, or we deliver those materials. The district office is delivering materials for those families who can't make it to campus sometimes. So we're seeing a lot of SUESD classified, certificated, all pitching in together to get this done. And Main Street is doing what they can to help our community access distance learning. And then culture and community. I can't say enough about culture and community. I'm a firm believer in trying to develop a culture that is respectful with a growth mindset, that is kind, and something that will take on its own and move forward from that. ELAC is a big thing that we have been focusing on, me and Barbara Hubner and Beth Willen, trying to bring our English language learner families and incorporate them more into how they can be involved, even in a virtual way. So we went to ELAC, we 3 to 4 meetings a year normally. We are now trying to meet every month so that we can at least get the voices of those families that are willing to participate in ELAC or can participate in ELAC and understand what their needs are and help support them. School site council continues to meet. I feel like I have a really good school site council this year, really involved, some great minds. So I'm happy to be working with them. Home and School Club, we all know about FOMS. They've been great. It's a little different this year with the pandemic and stuff and fundraising. So we're being very cautious on the way that we look at budget and how we spend the money. But they're an integral part of our community still. And I encourage you, if you guys want to come to a FOMS meeting, we got one next week. So if you got nothing to do next Wednesday night. And then community outreach, parent support, and that can be through counseling, helping them, getting them information in the community to find support, materials pickups delivered to their houses. And then I'm looking at, through FOMS, trying to do a family night. And I know Santa Cruz County Office Ed is also offering some family nights and family support too. So that's also linked up in my parent communications, and as well as trying to get some parent family nights that are specific to Main Street and specific to our families. And then our extracurricular opportunities. We have teachers who are giving their time in a virtual sense to monitor Zoom and for student clubs, Dungeons and Dragons clubs, chess clubs, sports clubs where you can sit around and talk about sports, just social aspects that are sometimes missing from our distance learning. And then the grade level electives. And these are more electives in a sense that are supported by students or their families, and then supervised by teachers. We had a few times where in the 5th grade at least, students putting a cooking class together as an elective, and then other students would join and learn how to cook something at home. And it's just been great. Those type of things have been great because it brings a little bit of, it brings community together, even though we can't be together in person. And that's all I have. And I will open this for questions and comments. And I never know if you guys are there because I'm looking at the.
Yep. We're all here. We're just kind of we're unmuting and popping back in. Any questions or comments from the board?
Phil?
So again, Main Street pioneered the in-person instruction in Santa Cruz County. So just saying.
That's right. I mean, I can't take credit for that. Jessica and Eric. I mean, yeah, that if you've seen that video, just like amazing. We've learned a lot because of that.
Anybody else? Go ahead, just jump in.
I just wanted to say that I feel like everything you've done to create community, I have no doubt that it's making such a difference in the lives of your students and your families. So I'm just really impressed. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, I actually forgot to mention that we're trying to get Tandy Beal or some kind of virtual Tandy Beal thing happening as well. So I'm working with my grade levels and leadership team to try and bring that in too, because we have a little bit of money left over from last year in a donation budget.
Wow, that's great. That would be great. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points here on that note. Bringing back the ukulele, which is great, because I've seen you have quite a ukuleles in the music room in the back, and put them to use.
Yeah, we just distributed them all.
Right, that's awesome. Go ahead. Anybody else? Just jump in there.
Okay, I'll jump in. Thank you for an awesome presentation. You really gave us the flavor of what's going on at Main Street, and it's really always incredible to hear what's going on, what's being offered to our kids right now. We all can be a little tied up with what's happening in our own bubbles, so it's really neat to hear everything that's happening. I did have a little clarifying question. When you were talking about the small, stable cohorts, I think you mentioned something about when we do go back to when, I don't even know how to phrase that, when hybrid happens. I don't think I quite heard or understood what you were saying could happen with the small, stable cohorts. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Not at all. Yeah. So the cohorts that we have in there right now, they would be either an A or B, right? So they'd be coming Tuesday and Thursday or Wednesday and Friday. Now, if they're coming Tuesday and Thursday, in-person learning, that Wednesday and Friday, they would be at home. And what we would like to do is have them come to campus and do their either async work or their distance learning, whether it be, a streaming model or what it is, but on campus. So they have that access, so they have that nutrition, and they still have access to teachers, because teachers do come down and check in with those students every once in a while. It's a big, it's a quick pop in, but having those students on campus 4 days a week, where 2 days would be in person with their teacher and 2 days would be in that stable cohort.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping you meant, and then I just wanted to clarify that would be awesome. And then another, I'm just a curiosity, with your school site council, home and school club, ELAC, like various committees of people who are meeting, are you finding that you're having better attendance now that things are on Zoom, or is it not as good as in person? Just curious about that.
Well, the funny thing is yes and no. So I'll say we've had better ELAC attendance, but I will say that part of that is Lily. A lot of it's Barbara Hubner, because she commands the Spanish language. So she can speak in a very educated, sophisticated way to our parents. And just having that communication and that dialogue back and forth has really helped it grow. School site council, I think it was just like, I really put out there, like we need people to sign up for school site council. And I finally got like 10 people to sign up, and then they were voted on, and they're really down to earth and understand where we are right now. They're not in this other world, like let's open schools no matter what. So it's kind of like we can talk and communicate on a level that is more where we are right now, pandemic speaking. FOMS hasn't had as much attendance. That was more of a communal in-person thing. So they've kind of dwindled off a little bit. So with the virtual.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Principal Platt. And I keep wanting to go in the library. I just, like, every time I'm there, I see it, it's welcoming, it's open. And then I'm just like rushing in to get my kids' bags of materials. And I must say the material drop-off pickup is just amazing. And the sweet things the teachers will add into the bags, and that what they've done is really made it special. Like the kids get excited because they really are getting something, you know, personal, and it is very exciting to bring home the packets that all of the teachers put together.
Thanks, Jen.
All right. Well, are there any comments or questions from the public?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay.
You guys are so coordinated with that.
Yeah, it took years of practice. Well, thank you, Ronnie, for coming out and traveling so far through the cable line and doing the presentation. There's a lot of great stuff there too. A lot of questions to ask, but a lot of great stuff too. And when everything gets back in there, then can't wait to visit the campus too.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Ronnie. All right. All right, so our next guest is Scott, and he is going to bring up, the discussion regarding racial justice and educational equity. I almost feel like Jimmy Fallon, he does the thank you cards. Oh, thank you. I'd like to thank.
Well, thanks, Ted, for that introduction on racial equity and the serious work going on in our district. It's already been referenced multiple times tonight, which to me is just a sign that it's just part of what we do now. It's not a separate item, which I think is something we can all be proud of. Of course, there's still lots of work to be done. I always like to go back and just reference how the work began. Of course, this is something that I think was on all of our minds for many, many years, but really coalesced around what happened over the summer and with the terrible incident with George Floyd specifically. And at that time, there was just a lot of heartfelt momentum about doing something and having this incredible seat that we have of influencing our youth and wanting to make sure that we do something with that influence in relation to race relations and racial equity as best we can. And everybody at that time there was a common message that I heard is don't have this be something that we lose the momentum on. Let's not have it be something 6 months from now that we're looking back and go, oh yeah, remember we were talking so much about that this has to be something that we have continuous conversations about. And of course, we heard a very powerful letter from our teachers union, and we allocated funds to each school, who then followed through and got input on books to buy for their library that accentuated racial equity. We saw some examples of those books. We've formed a racial justice task force, of which we have 3 board members who sit on it, but only 2 at a time, of course. We did some professional reading, and of course we contracted with a well-known consultant and an author of one of the articles that we read. And so, although there's lots of work to be done on this very serious matter, I do think that our organization can take pride in the fact that it hasn't been a flavor of the month. This has been something that we're sincerely committed to. And as you know, we've worked with our consultant, Nicole Anderson and Associates, on 3 levels. One is our administrative team, ADCO. One is the governance team, including the Board of Trustees, of course. And one is that racial justice task force that I mentioned, made up of different constituents, different stakeholders, including parents, teachers, and staff. And so, although the work is similar in all 3 groups, it's not exactly the same and is crafted for the unique audience of each, with an idea that we have these 3 waves kind of flowing along together, working in tandem. Some of the work is really kind of coming into vision. There was a lot of reading and discussion at first, and I think each group can start to see the work coming into an overall vision at the end, not totally clearly, because that's not the nature of it, to just jump into the end result. As we all know, one of our 4 agreements is to be okay with non-closure and continuous learning. But we do have this kind of foundation that all 3 groups are working on. When we look at the history of public education, I know that timeline that all 3 groups have looked at, when I went through with other administrators in the district, the AXA Equity Institute, that timeline was one of the items that really resonated with me. And when you take a look at the system that we're working within, and changes that we have to make from within the system, so we kind of have that as a foundation, and then we have this lens that we're learning about of cultural proficiency, and what that means, and looking at the different levels of cultural proficiency that our organization can be at, and in different areas. We have a mechanism that I would say is that article on the water of systems change, which really starts to take this desire, this philosophical and ethical desire to have a more racially just organization, and systematizes it. And then, of course, we're starting to talk more about the end game, at least in terms of this year's work. This is, I think, a lifelong pursuit. So I use that term end game very carefully. But the end game in terms of this year's work, and having a district plan on racial equity. And one of our next steps in the task force, for example, is to form subcommittees and to start to identify specific topics for different committees to focus on. One, for example, could be taking a look at our hiring practices and seeing if work can be done to have our overall staffing ratios better mirror our overall community, just as one example that a subcommittee could work on. So we've done a lot of work and a lot of reading and a lot of discussion, which I think is kind of the beginning of any good learning. But we have this foundation, the public education timeline, a lens of cultural proficiency, a mechanism for a system and the water of systems change, and then really starting to target an end game for this year of a district plan on racial equity with different subcommittees doing in-depth work, and having that all come together with a vision at the end of the year that all 3 groups can connect on. And so I think this work is going as planned. Of course, it seems like every time we meet, there's new information in the news to talk about. So it's provided, besides all of that good work, it's provided an avenue for folks to have a place to talk about, what we're seeing and hearing about in terms of how it impacts racial equity in our country and here in our district. So that's a brief summary of what all 3 groups have been working on, and we have several members here of that have been working on the same work, and so I open and invite you to join in the dialogue and talk about what you have found meaningful in this work.
Okay, go ahead, jump in. Go ahead.
So I have a question. Would the possibility of district elections be something that would fall into this group kind of thing?
Are you talking about having different trustee areas? That's a good question. I haven't considered that. I think that there is obviously a connection that you can make there. Although, as you know, we started taking a look at the legal requirements of that and targeting 2022 after getting some census data to follow up on that. But I think I would just say baked into that question shows, this lens that we're probably all going to be using more regularly about all of our practices and asking if they're equitable.
I'll hop in unless someone else was about to, or if Scott was still answering. No. And kind of piggybacking on that, Phil, at the last task force meeting, there was definitely some talk about, a little bit of talk about representation, you know, and what does that mean in terms of equity, and you know, do we have a staff that you know, looks the way that our student population looks, and no one brought that up as far as a board, but that I guess that's something the task force could look at if it came up. I forgot to mention earlier, but I also attended at least part of that the County Office of Education's event last night, and there was a really great video, you know, going along this topic of current high school students who were speaking very candidly about their experiences and their feelings about race and equity in education. And I kept the link up, so I'll post it in the chat if anyone wants to watch it. I really highly recommend it. And we have at least a couple of somewhat recent, or at least in my time, New Brighton students who are now high school students. So it was neat to see them. And, you know, it's so important to get the student voice in this, which, you know, as an elementary school district, that's not always something that we're able to do, but hearing from these former New Brighton students, as well as these high schoolers who came from other feeder districts, was really powerful and meaningful. And again, I'm just really appreciative that we're on this journey, and that we're doing the work, and that we have so many great partners doing the work with us. This isn't something that the board is just kind of moseying around investigating on our own. Obviously, we've got representatives from every stakeholder group digging in, doing the work, having the opportunity, as Scott said, to respond as current events are unfolding, and process those, and just continue kind of building into the examination of what we're doing for our students and how we can be better. So I'm glad to be doing this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to jump in? Any swear? Oh, okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I thought the presentation yesterday put together by the County Office of Education was very meaningful and just helpful in terms of helping me continue the conversation that we've been having in our district. One of the speakers had a slide, Dr. Noguera, with some specific points in terms of the research of what helps African-American students succeed in schools. So I was just wanting to share some of those points, if that would be okay. So let's see if I can even read my handwriting. So he said that successful schools and districts have high expectations for their African-American students, and they counter stereotypes. Also, there is affirmation of their identity and their culture. They provide a sense of belonging to the school, and they do that through extracurricular activities, for example. So tying that in with Ronnie's presentation on all the extracurricular activities that they provide to students, I thought that was interesting. They also provide supportive relationships with teachers and peers, and strong partnerships between the parents and the teachers. So just some points to think about in our continued work to see how can we can help our students the best.
With everything that was said, Scott, I mean, there's a lot going on here, and what kind of stuck with me is that let's not lose the momentum. You know, sometimes that happens. Things just go. You know, you step on the throttle, the pedal, and it goes, and then it just kind of runs out of gas. And the thing is that some of these things, and who knows what's going to happen in our political world now, in our society, and you know, when things, I guess, if they go good, then we kind of lose our momentum. and we kind of, and then things go to the wayside. I mean, I'm just kind of speaking widely about this, but that is something that how can we keep the flow with the racial equity, and one of them is maybe a mission statement too, that may help, and I won't volunteer for that, but but the thing is that, you know, that's where it all comes into. And I know, Phil, you have something to say.
Yeah, I think if we fold in the desire, requirement, or whatever it is that hovers over us about the district elections, I think if we fold that into this, that's a good foundation for 18 months of keeping this thing going. And the whole process is pretty introspective, I think. It's not like we're supposed to, you know, what should we be doing? How should we carve up? I mean, it's pretty involved. And so I think that, as like I said, if you use that as the foundation, then everything else you can build on top of that. Like, what do you need? What are you doing? What do you need more of? What do you need less of?
Okay, yeah, a lot of good points and a lot to think about with this here too. Anybody else, staff, want to bring something up? Michelle or Jessica, you know, you're more than welcome to hop in if you'd like. Or other, Jessica? No, go ahead.
Yeah, I thank you for the opportunity to kind of chime in on this. This is something that's really important to all of us, and very connected to the work in the educational services side of what we do in a district. And I really, because I sit on two of the committees, I can hear just, you know, two different perspectives, but a very similar vein. And one of the things that I think in moving forward is really taking a look at our practices, taking a look at the structures that support students differently, the data that we collect and what stands behind that data, the materials that students have access to, and then how we interact with students as adults that, you know, we're educated in a different generation. So all of these kinds of things I'm thinking about as we're continuing the work. So I appreciate being asked, because this is really an ongoing cycle of inquiry for me on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say, from the business side, it's always interesting. I've been part of work like this for a long time, and I struggle sometimes because in my world everything is so linear, that these bigger conversations that we have in this kind of work sometimes is very disconcerting for me, because I don't know how to articulate in a way. So I appreciate the opportunity the district's taking. And like Jessica, I sit on both with the perspective of the board and the perspective of our administrative council. So different, but very similar. So I find both of the meetings very interesting.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything from the public? Anybody from the public, I should ask, want to chime in or
I have
comments or questions?
nothing on text.
And nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that's a good topic that's going to keep on flowing here. With that, if there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and move on. And this is our discussion regarding COVID and distance learning. And Scott.
Yeah, so kind of what everything we're doing right now is revolving around. So a lot of topics within one larger topic. Some of the things we'll talk about tonight in relation to COVID-19 and distance learning are vaccines, the Governor's Safe School for All plan, surveillance testing, addressing positive cases of staff, small student cohorts, which have already been mentioned plenty of times tonight, collaboration with our labor partners, CSEA and SEA, stakeholder communication, specifically surveys and survey follow-up, the planning for hybrid instruction, including professional development, which again has already been mentioned tonight, and facilities preparedness, including air purifiers, just to name a few of the topics. So we'll start with vaccines. Although we may hear some changes tomorrow from the governor, is what we're kind of hearing. So like everything else related to COVID-19, subject to change, right? But with that being said, COVID vaccines, we are targeting February, generally as the month we are hoping and expecting to have staff, teachers and school staff have access to the vaccine, and having that done at the beginning of the month with the first dose, and then either the 3 or 4 week interim period, depending on which vaccine, and then getting the second dose. Our school nurse has already been vaccinated, and I've said it here before, and I just want to say again, the school nurses, it's one of those groups that always does amazing work, but a lot of times behind the scenes. And with COVID-19, they have moved front and center, and none more so than ours, Vicki Grisham, who has really helped lead the way and shared her medical expertise as related to our COVID practices. So we're very hopeful about vaccines and the possibility to get our staff vaccinated. So hopefully that stays on course. The Governor's Safe School for All plan is one that we are still dissecting regularly. That the governor has offered financial incentives to get students back on campus for in-person learning with a focus beginning in elementary grades. And that's even while in the purple tier. Now, it's supposed to be in light purple is when the opportunity to bring those students back is with a adjusted COVID case rate of under 25 per 100,000 population. Just to put that in context right now, or the latest data that I've seen, our county was over 50. And so we still have a ways to go to be even in range for that. And there are plenty of other concerns, I'll say respectfully, about the governor's plan. A coalition of educational organizations, including AXA, CSBA, CASBO, the Small School District Association, and the consortium of county superintendents, CSESA, have issued a combined letter, a joint letter, and they've identified several concerns with the Safe Schools for All plan, without necessarily looking a gift horse in the mouth, but still calling out concerns. And a couple of the concerns are the use of Prop 98 general funds to help pay for COVID-19 testing. As you probably know, COVID-19 testing is a big component of the Safe Schools for All plan, and that includes students. So thinking about the resources, financial resources that would take to make happen is daunting. And so that's one of the concerns that was called out by this education coalition. And then just the sheer feasibility of being able to test all students and staff as called for in the plan is something that the group has called into question. So again, always going to try to look for the positive, but at the same time, wanting to call out concerns now that trusted sources have had a chance to kind of weigh in and vet the plan. And then just some general concerns about the rushed nature of it. I will say, I think it's safe to say that has come out from the Education Coalition. And I will just say one of the things that's most challenging from my perspective, you think about all of these things we do, deep, meaningful conversations with our labor partners, a willingness to go slow to go fast so that we know where each other are and really truly understand each other. And then to put it in a more rushed format is required under the governor's plan is something that kind of flies in the face of the type of work that we've tried to do with our partners. Next topic, surveillance testing. And so we, as you know, we have had ongoing surveillance testing our staff through Stanford. Stanford had been impacted, of course, with the surge in COVID cases these last few weeks. And so although staff that are already in the system for surveillance testing through COVID will continue to be on the every other month cycle. Those that haven't been in the system will be picked up by another group that the COE is working with. So everybody will still have access to surveillance testing. We're just bringing in another group to help support the work that is being provided through Stanford. Addressing positive cases. So of course we continue to do this with cases that are not spread through school transmission, just to be perfectly clear, but rather through home life exposure. We are working on our finishing our COVID prevention plan, the CPP. And most importantly, in my opinion, our communication system, making sure that all our employees know who their point of contact is to communicate any exposure concerns or potential COVID hazards, knowing that they report that to their principal or supervisor, and then making sure that all of our principals and supervisors know that they report that to a single point of contact, which is our COVID email address, which George set up for us. And that email automatically goes to myself, to our district nurse, and to our personnel coordinator, so that we can make sure any of these concerns or exposures are addressed at all those levels, from an overall perspective, from a health perspective, and from an HR perspective. And so having those real clear lines of communication continue to be something that we focus on. And in the world we are right now, people do get exposed and people do test positive. And if they've been on campus, we have processes and communication systems to make sure that they're addressed properly, including reporting it to public health. Small student cohorts have been mentioned several times tonight. This is a beacon in all of these challenging times, in that through everybody's work, we've identified the students who need the most support with distance learning and gotten them back on campus. Took a 2-week respite to make sure that we were being as cautious as we could following the holidays, but got them back on campus yesterday in spite of the challenges that the weather presented with us. Our principals reported that the majority of those students did show up yesterday, and continue to have staff supervise them. Mostly classified staff that have stepped up, often in a completely different capacity than what they ever initially started working for us in, but knowing that students come first and supervising those students so that they can have the best access to the distance teaching that our teachers are providing. Collaboration with our labor groups has been mentioned several times tonight, and nothing happens without these two groups' support. And as we've previously mentioned at other board meetings, we do have a MOU for hybrid instruction with CSEA, and we are in talks right now with SEA. And I will just say that from my perspective, these have been very fruitful discussions. As you might imagine, it's complex from both organizations' perspective, but from a teaching perspective, hybrid instruction, even more complex. And so understandably, we've taken a bit more time to dive into the issues of how a hybrid program may look, how it can best serve students, and how it can also best serve staff and make sure that they are as safe as possible while delivering a hybrid program. So our partners with SEA have been phenomenal in digging into those issues. And I will say optimistically that we are close to finalizing MOU, which will allow us to move forward with a hybrid program when the COVID data allows for it. Stakeholder communication is also another big part in this whole process. And right now, the key piece of that, of course, we've done town halls and other modes of communication, but our big piece right now have been following up on the surveys that were delivered right before the winter holidays. And we closed right when we came back on January 4th. We had just around 40 to 45% of our families responded to that, which I think is a really good number. And then our office staffs, through the coordination of their principals, have been working on following up on all the families that didn't respond to the survey, so that we could ask them those questions about if they feel comfortable when the time comes for sending their students back for some in-person learning in a hybrid program, or whether they're leaning more towards staying in a full distance learning only program. And as always, the office staffs have done a phenomenal job. Yesterday, our principals reported, and literally we're talking in a school, they can tell you 7 families left in the school, 12 families left in the school, getting down to that granular level of data. So we are at the point where we do have a good feel, or can start dissecting, what it might look like to have a percentage of families. And right now it's running at about 20% of families who prefer to stay in a distance learning environment, even if we come back in hybrid and, later on in the spring. And so that really allows us, these two things together, the culmination of this MOU for hybrid with our Teachers Association, and this culmination of a full set of data from our parents, these two things together will really help us shape what the hybrid program will look like. There's still a lot of work to be done with that, and answering questions about how best to serve those families who wish to stay in a hybrid program, and where the win-win solutions are for those families and for perhaps some of our staff who, for serious medical needs, whether they prefer not or just cannot come back to in-person learning as fast as we would like. So we're going to be working off those two big foundational pieces, and digging in and working together to really craft the hybrid program even further. Professional development has already been mentioned, but I do just want to acknowledge Dr. Kiernan for her leadership and coordination of not only that successful PD Day on January 4th, but for the success of 2 weeks after that. That was a really important part of the plan for us as a whole. Ronnie mentioned we've mentioned in other board meetings about that nature of when this thing all happened, back in March of 20, it was like 1 week and then go distance learning. And there really wasn't time to dig in the way that would have been appropriate. And we wanted to make sure that if nothing else, that we used the time that was on our side. And so that Jessica put together a great program for that. PD focused on exemplary hybrid practices and just an opportunity to collaborate with other teachers on how best to deliver instruction in a hybrid environment. So, if you think about things that happen in school, sometimes you look back and you go, oh gosh, we didn't value the PD piece of that enough. And I think we can be proud to say that although we can always do more in that area, we didn't undervalue the significance of making sure that our teachers had effective professional development as we make a transition ultimately to a hybrid environment. And of course, the PD is only good as the teachers that want to engage in it and the level they want to engage in it. And I'm just very appreciative of how our teachers, amongst everything else that's going on, engage in a very significant and serious manner with the PD that was offered them. And as Jessica said earlier, having our county also support that in a very significant way. I guess you can definitely say sometimes good things come out of these really significant challenges. And I think a deeper collaboration with our COE and tapping their experts is something that has definitely come out of it. Facilities preparedness for a hybrid model is another really important variable in the hybrid equation. And one very big ticket item that we have put into place through our yeoman's work in the business services department has been to purchase and set up air purifiers in every classroom in the district. It's just one more added piece to help ensure the most healthy and COVID prevention environment that we can when we do eventually report back. The California Department of Public Health, as I'm sure you know, has issued updated guidelines, and they're Some of them are in alignment with the governor's Safe Schools for All plan. For example, having a COVID-19 safety plan in place with an embedded COVID-19 prevention plan in that COVID-19 safety plan. So a lot of plans that we're working on right now to make sure that we are in step with all of the new guidance. Another specific part of the new guidance from CDPH is that beginning this coming Monday, the 25th, every district must notify the Department of Public Health whether it's serving students in person and in what capacity, whether that's all students, a hybrid model, small cohorts, or none at all. And we'll be doing this on a weekly basis. All districts across California submitting this information, and I'm sure that that will be made available in some public way so that folks can gauge that. So it's an ever-changing field of requirements and plans to stay in step with, but we have a team that always just has a mindset to pitch in and get things done. So we will continue to do with that, and we're just soldiering on with a common sense approach that really boils down to maintaining small cohorts, because those are the students who need the in-person learning the most while we figure everything else out and while we monitor data. Maintaining collaborative discussions with labor and ensuring that we're looking at everything from a win-win perspective, and staying compliant with the plans and efforts that we have to do in relation to, for example, CDPH guidance, and then just watching case rates to try to find that common sense sweet spot between in-person learning and the benefit that we all know that presents, but also with the overall safety of our students and staff. And so we will continue to try to mine those common sense sweet spots amongst all the other work that we have to do. And with that, I'll stop and take questions or comments.
All right, gang. Go ahead and hop in there. Go ahead, Phil.
So what a list. I will tell you that of this list of things that I'm looking at here, collaboration and stakeholder communications were the only things that we were doing a year ago. All this other stuff, that's like been added to, duties as assigned kind of thing. And they keep getting assigned. But here's my question. Is the new math framework going to impact distance learning? So that's one. And I hate to ask this, but we should figure out how much it's going to cost us to extend the school year for Monday through Friday, all day, 8 weeks in the summer. And I'm sorry, Michelle, but borrow the money if you have to.
No, you're preaching to the converted on that one, Phil. You really are. We weren't quite ready to go in depth with those discussions, but you've alluded to them, and so they're perfect. As it's a perfect segue to say that with the other COVID support money that we're getting, and I'm sure Michelle will want to elaborate on this, but a good chunk of the money can be put towards extending the school year in some way, shape, or form. And with us already having the infrastructure and routine of having a summer school, we are already in initial discussions about how to have an expanded summer school learning gap approach to that with funds that were usually summer schools put together with a shoestring budget, and I think this year we'll be able to do something more significant.
I have to
get a trans if you have to.
We when I give an update to the board on our budget, I can give more solid numbers, but yet the district is receiving a substantial amount of money from the extended year grant. And so words I thought would never come out of my mouth before the meeting today, I told Scott, go to town with summer school. Whatever we need to do, we have the money for. So again, no words I ever thought I would speak.
And I can address part of that also, Phil, if you like.
Oh, is that the math question?
Yeah, actually both questions. So, like Michelle and Scott talked about, we've really actually even initiated the conversation of the extended school year opportunity via like old language, summer school, and looking at even possibly partner or team teachers to take parts of contracts for the summer so that we could actually serve more kids for a longer amount of days and a longer number of weeks. So we're really starting those conversations already. We're talking about different curriculum to actually embed little less enrichment, a little higher academic rigor, but we're definitely having some serious conversations about that and basing it all in data. Informal and formal data. And then going to the framework question, I mean, I think everything's going to be impacted by any new framework. So we still have a social studies framework that was adopted a couple of years ago that we're still really kind of grappling with its infusion into our school program. And so we really need to kind of take a look at the framework once it's finally adopted and say, does it match our current curriculum? Does it match our additional practices, which are built around CGI? And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, then we're actually going to have to do some training around that. So we're looking at all of those things daily and really trying to build out the systems of support for our staff first, our understanding of our families, and then kind of building it in for kids.
I knew you guys are on both of these things, so just thought I'd ask.
Thank you, Phil.
I know in the past there had been talk of using cameras during hybrid instruction so that a teacher can simultaneously be in the classroom and also reach the children that are in distance learning. Is that still an option that is being explored?
Yeah, that's one of the points where in collaboration with SEA about, and really kind of comes down to, like I said, as we take a look at the numbers of families that might want to opt out of a hybrid program for full distance learning, and seeing what that would look like. It's much more complex than this, but generally either in a model where those families are taken off of rosters, right? I know we've discussed this before, taken off of their current rosters and built out a new roster, and then whichever teachers serve them, their former students, backfill into other rosters, a reshuffling of the deck, if you will. It's either that model or where students stay on their current roster, regardless of whether they're in a hybrid or distance learning only model, but that they would be able to zoom in, if you will, via a camera in the classroom. And it's a very weighty discussion, and one that we don't take lightly, because it smacks kind of to the heart of professional practice. And you think about a conscientious teacher, not just asking if their camera is on, but are they able to serve those students that are only in a distance learning environment to the level that they've grown accustomed. These are very in-depth conversations. So the short answer is yes, that discussion is still happening. But because of all the reasons I mentioned, we haven't landed on one side or the other.
Amanda, did you want to say something, or
I was going
jump
to
in.
I was heading towards that. Whoop. Yeah, here's one that's a little bit out of left field, Scott. Sorry, but I just keep thinking about the classified team members who are supervising our kids in the in-person cohorts, and how incredible that is. And hearing, these are people who this is not their normal, not in the normal job duties, and without them stepping up and doing this, we wouldn't be able to be serving these kids who are most at need. And I know we're all, so incredibly grateful. And I'm wondering if there's any talk countywide, statewide, about any way to support folks who are doing this, you know, in case they decide that they want to become teachers someday. I'm just wondering, like, if there's any talk about what we could do to show gratitude and support folks who maybe might, you know, as a result of this work, consider moving on into other positions.
I think it's a great question, straight from center field. Well, I will just say that is something that we're always interested in mining those folks that are in classified positions who, you know, whose heart is really there for students and may want to enter the teaching profession, and that there have been in the past, and I think there will be, you know, grant opportunities for those sort of folks to get either tuition assistance or assistance in getting their credentials. So I think the short answer is yes. I mean, philosophically we're always there for that, and that there have been financial incentives in the past. I think I remember hearing that one may be on you know, legislative possibilities, but I don't remember the exact number of the bill or anything.
Thank you. I will look for that. Thanks.
I was going to say, yeah, Amanda, it's part of the governor's budget. There's, I want to say 25 million, but don't quote me on that. That's pathways to credentialing, I think they're calling it, for classified staff members who want to enter the credentialing program. And so there's actually two different variations of support out there for basically lead to the same path for the credentialing.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
So vaccinations, back to that, when they come available, I'm not sure if this was mentioned or not, but every staff member who on site has to have a vaccination, or are they able to opt out of it?
Yeah, we can't mandate it, but you know, we certainly think it's a benefit that the county is able to offer it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it clears a path to be able to say that the vaccine was offered, right? And those who take advantage of it, great, that's better for their protection. And those that opt out, at least it was offered, right? So, but no, we can't mandate that they take the vaccine, nor would it want to.
So let's say if it was offered and one decides not to take the vaccination,
Mm-hmm.
and then at work they get COVID, they come down with the symptoms or they actually come down with COVID. Is that the district's liability?
Well, our liability is
Phil. I think Phil. You want to say something, Phil? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because there's that possibility, and there's the possibility that you gave that to me, and so those are the discussions I think that we should, you know, probably have with our outside professionals.
Right. Oh, there you are.
Well, what I can say, you know, just to kind of, you know, tie those things together, is that the access to vaccines is a great victory, but it does not negate everything else that we're doing, right? It doesn't mean that we can let down our guard on all of the protocols that we're doing, such as physical distancing and face coverings, and staggering schedules, and all of those things we're doing to not share the air as much as we can. Vaccines don't negate that. It just gives one more layer of
right,
not only physical safety but peace of mind.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, Phil.
So Ted, there's still no proof that a vaccinated person can't infect others.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it could come down from the state or somewhere else too. So it's just something I was thinking about. But there's a lot to think of here, and that kind of sprung on to all of us, especially our staff. Is there any comments or questions from the public, or Michelle or Jessica, you have anything to throw in? I know you kind of added a few things.
I don't have anything on text.
Nothing on email, and no, I think Scott covered everything.
All right.
There's no one
Yeah.
on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Safe to say, let's move on to our next topic. This is a discussion regarding our board policy 3280, and that will be Michelle, so don't mute.
All right. Who doesn't love a good board policy update? So this one is on lease or sale of district property. Just a little bit of wordsmithing, a little bit of different additional language added into the board policy, specifically for SB 820 and SB 98, that has some new regulations regarding the sale through 2024, where proceeds from sale of property can go towards one-time general fund uses, and that in certain circumstances, there does not need to be an advisory committee assigned for the sale of property, and that the board can meet in closed session with to do negotiations on the sale of property, excuse me. So that's kind of in a nutshell on that one.
And of course, it says it here, but it's real property. It's actually land, right? Or facilities.
Correct.
Basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, this
So
is
that's what we're discussing, is not, you know, a bus or something like that. So it's actually the real property. Okay.
There's also language in there if the property
Right.
that's up for sale has been modernized in the last 10 years. There are certain circumstances where money could be owed back to the state if we used modernization funds
Right.
for that. Kind of basically the same boilerplate language. They're just doing a little bit of an extension to 2024 on that one-time exemption of selling property to use for general fund purposes. Typically, when you sell real property, it has to go back into facilities maintenance or facilities growth.
And that the mentioned bond, you know, we have a bond. I mean, heaven forbid if anybody does this, but you build something and then you sell off the land that has a building on it. So, I mean, do you have to give that back to the bond, or do you pocket that and the public still pays back the bond? Not saying that we're going to do that, but that's what I just thought of.
Please no.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
You know, that's a good question, because the only reference I know is to actual modernization state bond
Okay.
fund, not
Right,
local
okay.
sale of bond funds. So that's an interesting question.
Don't
Sorry,
auction
that's-
off our schools, Ted.
No, I'm sorry. That's just my mind. So, all right. I think with that, are there any comments or questions from the board? Okay. Anything from the public?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And then let's see, let's move on to our action item. So this is consider approval of board policy 6160.1, selection and evaluation of instructional materials, and that's Jessica.
Thank you. So I know it's been quite a while since your first reading of this board policy 6161.1, but it is here for your review of and second reading and action. This board policy has to do with the evaluation of instructional materials as it relates to the technology and equipment that's required to actually access instructional materials. And so it's based on CSBA's kind of legal guidance, but certainly something that's so important to us now. So our district is recommending the approval of this new board policy 6161.1.
Unmute. There we go. All right, good. Yeah, I know it's been a little while. We could take turns reading the paragraph at a time. Otherwise, are there any questions from the board regarding this? Any other questions? I know this is a second reading. And if not, I think all are good. Public, any comments or questions or comments from the public?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
All right, very good. With that, I'm going to call for a motion to approve Board Policy 6161.1.
Going once. No, I'll make the
I
motion.
know, I'm sorry, I could have gone, but I think we already know what it is. Oh, yeah. Okay, Amanda, first, second.
I'll second. Carolyn.
Carolyn, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? No, okay.
Linda shaking her head no.
All right. Future agenda items. Anybody like to bring forward? Phil?
Yeah, I want to try to combine two completely disparate topics with one word, and that word is resilience. I would like the district to think about being reflective about what we've been through, and we're still here. I will say this, we're a scrappy bunch, and I think we should acknowledge that. So that's one. The other thing is, the climate thing, I'm onto that. Earth Day is coming, and we've been very resilient with our climate event, crap that's been going on around here. So I'm going to try to combine maybe we can ask our students what they think about Earth Day at the same time that we acknowledge to our staff that they're a scrappy bunch.
Okay, so agenda item scrappy, scratchy bunch. I can't even say it. Okay, Phil, thank you. That would be a good headliner for an agenda item. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion. Carolyn.
Carolyn, all right, first, second,
Jen, I'll second.
and Jen will second it. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, I don't see any chairs thrown around. All right, folks,
Hey.
well, that concludes our meeting for tonight.
I just want to tell you, Michelle, that I'm from the Midwest, so I'm an experienced snow shoveler. If it really comes next week, you need the help.
Thank you, because I need one more challenge for where I live, because I haven't had enough this year. Fire, flood, loss of electricity, loss of cell, trees falling. Give me one more. Come on, it's great.
Why not snow?
Locusts.
All right, see ya.
All right,
Good night,
gang.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Yeah, thank
Wow,
you, George.
Dylan.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, everyone.